What's up, everybody? I am back with another video, another music haul, but this time I'm going to be showing you my vinyl collection. So, pulled out the box of vinyls here. I've been collecting vinyl for about 10 years, a little over 10 years now. Before that, I was mostly into CDs, cassettes, and digital downloads and stuff like that. So, relatively new to vinyl, so let's get started. So I have a mixture of old stuff, current stuff, and first off we have artists that I like. Carly Simon, Boys in the Trees. And this album has the Doobie Brothers cover, You Belong to Me. That's the probably the most popular single on this album. Actually, I'm not sure if this is a cover of the Doobie Brothers song or the Doobie Brothers song is a cover of her song, because she tends to write and produce most of her stuff. So, but a pretty good album. Probably one of my favorite female or just general artists in general of all time, Miss Joni Mitchell. Wild Things Run Fast. This was her first 80s album, you could say. But this album I love. This was like my introduction to Joni. So many cool, like jazzy songs, and of course her classic singer-songwriter stuff. Chinese Cafe, it's a popular one. Moon at the Window. Love that album. A lot of times there'll be some albums that I just want to have on vinyl, just stuff I want to play on vinyl, and then stuff I just see at the record store. And it's going to be a theme here on this collection is George Michael. So we got the Wham single, I'm Your Man. Pretty much you got the acapella version, a couple remixes. Wham, I'm Your Man. The single came out in 1986. And here we have another single from my favorite pop artist, George Michael, Kissing a Fool. Lovely vinyl. Actually, this sounds really great on vinyl. The story behind this is the day after George Michael passed, I went to a record store and I just happened to see, this was the first record that I just happened to like go into the record I picked up the first record I found, and it was that. So I was like, oh man, I had to pick it up. Album that I love, classic, had to get it on vinyl. Amy Winehouse, Back to Black. I love this album cover. It's one of my favorites. Of course, you know, you have Rehab, Love is a Losing Game, Back to Black. Classic album of the 2000s. Probably one of the best artists, Gone Too Soon, 27 Club, but had to get my girl Amy on vinyl. Next up we have another classic, Frank Sinatra, Come Fly With Me. This is like Sinatra in his heyday, 50s Sinatra, Capitol Records Sinatra. All of the songs on here are themed about travel, so you have like Autumn in New York, April in Paris, Road to Mandalay, Blue Hawaii. Great album to have. Always good to have a little Sinatra in the record collection. And another, so Joni Mitchell, favorite female artist. Next favorite female artist, 1A and 1B. This is 1B, Kate Bush, The Dreaming. And this album came out in 82, I think. This was the first album that she produced entirely on her own. And this has just, I mean, this is like the beginning of like the Kate Bush golden era. So I don't think the record's in the best condition, but I had to have it. And I love the album work, the artwork. There she has the key in her mouth and she's passing it through a kiss. Love Kate Bush. Next off we have another Sinatra classic, Probably his best album. My favorite Sinatra album, Only for the Lonely. And it's filled with torch songs, sad songs. In fact, Sinatra said himself that he preferred singing these kind of torch songs than he did the swinging, upbeat songs. This was more of his forte. And this is probably the best collection of... This is Sinatra at his best, basically. Great song, the great album to have on vinyl. Next, we have one of my babies here. This came out in 2012. David Byrne and St. Vincent, Love This Giant. And it's actually autographed by Annie Clark, St. Vincent, and David Byrne himself. I bought it when they went on tour. And this is a orchestra album filled with horns. So it's a horn orchestra. So you got the tubas, you got the trombones, you got the saxophones, and you got, of course, you know, David and Annie. But this is one of my favorite albums of the 2010s. It's definitely a classic. It's 10 years old now, but autographed copy. Another Wham. This is the main Wham album with all the big hits. It's almost like a greatest hits album. Because you got Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Everything She Wants, and of course, Careless Whisper. So this is George right before he broke off and went solo. Next, we have another one of my babies, One Night Alone, Prince, solo and voice by Prince. This is basically Prince on piano. This is him showing off his piano skills. This is literally one of my favorite Prince albums. It's unsung. It was re-released on vinyl a couple years ago. It's actually, I don't really want to take the vinyl out. I'll take it out. It's purple vinyl. So it's cool. You get that little purple color. And so albums like this I want to have on vinyl because it's just, you know, this is perfect for vinyl. You really hear his voice. You really hear, you know, each key that he strikes on the instrument. It really comes off really clear on that good analog sound. So I need to get a wrapper for that. Prince. Okay, so we have next, older vinyl, Sarah Vaughan. One of the great singers, one of the great sad jazz singers. And this has a couple of my favorites on it. Really, Black Coffee is my one of my all-time favorites. And her version of it is just the best. So you gotta have a couple of jazz classics in your vinyl collection. After Hours with Sarah Vaughan. And next we have Steve Arrington, Dancing in the Key of Life, kind of an 80s R&B. This is the vocalist from Slave. This is when he went a little more pop. He got songs like Dancing in the Key of Life, Feel So Real. Steve Arrington, he's one of my favorite singers. One of my like unsung singers a lot of people don't know about. But in that R&B funk genre, man, one of the best out there. And there's another 80s random, Wang Chung, To Live and Die in LA. Another, I think they're a British group. Yeah, they're definitely a British group. But it's from the soundtrack, or not the soundtrack, but just back then they weren't more so soundtracks, but just music from the movie. But To Live and Die in LA, Wait, a couple of really good songs. But like as far as that 80s and new wave, oh man, Wang Chung is ahead of their time. And speaking of another 80s new wave band, this, well, you know, I'll say this for last because this one is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. So I'm gonna save that for last. And then next we have Santana, Black Magic Woman. I mean, you talk about artwork. Some albums you just get for the artwork. Look at that. I mean, you know, it's a great album as well. But back then, look at the artwork. The artwork captivated you to buy the album. So you got Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen, Oye Como Va. Classic. Carlos Santana. We recently lost her. Olivia Newton-John. Physical, another, just a great, one of the top singers, you know, female singers of that era. But I love her spirit. She's just one of those artists that just, there's just something about her. I really love Olivia Newton-John. She's as pure, I don't know what's the good word. She's as authentic as she is in her music. So I mess with Olivia Newton-John. She's one of my favorites. Rest in peace, Olivia. Next we have another classic. This is the best of. Or is this the best of? No, this is Billie Holiday, Lady Sings the Blues. Lady Day Blues. So this is like a greatest hits album. But you know, it's just a great album to have on vinyl, you know. Love Billie Holiday, one of the best jazz singers of all time. Best vocalist, but one of the most unique vocalists. Here's another kind of 80s random. David Sylvian, Brilliant Trees. This is a great album to have on vinyl. I think I sought this one out. But there were in the 80s, you had some albums that were timeless, like ahead of their years in the sense that like you can play this album and you can't tell what decade it's from. A lot of experimental. This came out in '84. He was really doing some kind of ambient, abstract sort of music. Still kind of had that pop sensation about it, but love David Sylvian. If you haven't heard him, definitely check him out. This is a preview to my last album on the show. Talk Talk, Color of Spring. So this is another kind of 80s random UK, probably the best, most unsung band from that era, from that genre. This is the album in the midway of their career when they sort of changed styles, but this is a really, really quality pop record. Great to have on vinyl. I love this album. 5 stars for me. I love the artwork too, with the butterflies and all of their artwork is great. Next up, since it's Christmas time, got friends and family over, throw on some Nat King Cole, the Christmas songs. Good album to have in the collection. You know, you got the Christmas song. You know, he's someone that Sinatra looked up to. So you gotta have some Chicago's on Nat King Cole. Next up, we have my girl Stephanie Mills, What You Gonna Do. Her music has not been reissued. And she has a lot of great albums from the 70s that are hard to find. And unsung people, she needs to get her flowers more. Stephanie Mills is just one of the top singers in the R&B genre, you know, in that era especially. Starlight, that's one of my favorites. A lot of hip-hop songs sampled that. What You Gonna Do With My Lovin'. Hit single. But love me some Stephanie Mills. Got another Talk Talk single. This is Life's What You Make It. Great album, great song. And some really good B-sides. Back then, you get a single and you get a B-side that's not on the album. Worthwhile. Love Talk Talk. This is a real random one. I bought this in England. This is Nordic Navy Blue. I think they're definitely a British band, but it's a EP, only 4 tracks on it. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like lo-fi rock, but the band is like really tight, and it's really kind of R&B-ish. Vinyl is expensive. For 4 tracks, $16. But if you like the music, some stuff is worth having on vinyl. I love the album work here, but let's see, when did this come out? 2000, it doesn't say, but I'm thinking like 2015 or something. And they haven't come out with anything else since. I don't know why, but love that album. And this is another album I bought in the UK. This is 90s random right here. Taxi, Chocolate. I think I heard a record of theirs before and was like, let me get this on vinyl. So this is what vinyl shopping is all about, the random stuff, the stuff that you don't see, like just the stuff you don't know about. You take a chance with it. But vinyl's kind of so high now, it's hard to take a chance with albums because it's like, $14. Don't want to take a chance with that. But this is kind of the genre I would describe this as, is like that 90s electronic downbeat R&B. I mean, the 90s was just like really popping when it came to like that chill out music, if you will. And they used to have a channel called MTV Chill Out, and you would hear like all types of different records on it. Another Steve Arrington record, Jam Packed. I had to get this on vinyl because it's not on any streaming services. And this is like this came out in like the late 80s or whatever. Another 80s random, but really funky, really, like I said, love Steve Arrington, love his voice. This album was more kind of his return to like the funk. You know, he did a couple pop albums, but like this is like super funky, especially, you know, for that late 80s time period. And next off, I mean, you might have heard of this record before, I'm not quite sure. It's Thriller, Michael Jackson. Some people have heard of it. I think it's like the biggest selling album of all time or something. But great to have on vinyl. This is the original from back in the 80s. This was my mother's record. I kind of inherited that. And this was my dad's record back in the day. Morris Day, The Color of Success. He left the time and went solo. Okay, this was $9.97 back in 1985 when it came out. Minneapolis Sound, Morris Day. Okay, next up we got another one of my mom's records. Disco Jamaica Reggae. I think this is like a compilation of disco reggae as described on the album cover. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the music's good. I actually haven't listened to it yet. Next up we have Dejudo. I actually can't pronounce this. Lieutenant Nicholson, Aimé Césaire. I bought this in Paris. A French Afro-Pian duo is back with a funky masterpiece album. Afro-funk, best way to describe it. I heard it on the radio one time. Actually I think it's two LP set, but I haven't listened to this in a while, but it's really good. I really like this. How much was this? 24 euros. But it's a really good record. Next we have the Jacksons, Triumph. I think this is one of my dad's records or something. This is not like this is probably out of all the Michael Jackson stuff, probably the least favorite record of theirs. Is very little to no Michael Jackson on it. And it's super 80s sounding, super of its time, but it's the Jacksons, so I can't complain. Suzanne Vega, one of my favorite. If you see my CD collection, she's on there. So this is a kind of a 90s random. After her acclaimed album, Solitude Standing, she did this one. I mean, she was still young at the time, but as singer-songwriters are concerned, she's up there. She's like definitely in my top 5. Days of Open Hand. Came out in 90, my birth year. Wendy and Lisa, the backbone of Prince and the Revolution, their first solo album, self-titled, 1987. Love, 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 love this record. They just, you get that Prince sound, but they're just so angelic in their voice, their vocals, produced by Wendy and Lisa and Bobby Z. So after the Revolution disbanded, Wendy and Lisa went solo, and they just kept that sound going. So if you love Prince and the Revolution, you love Purple Rain, I would definitely check that album out. Next up, we have another record that I bought in Paris. This is Nicole Willis, Banta Polomita, My Soul Sensation. Now, Nicole Willis, if I'm not mistaken, is like from Sweden or something. But she's funky. Her band is funky. And this came out in 2018, 2019. And I bought this from, here's the record sticker right there. I was aware of one of her records, and I was like, let me buy this. Because they played one of her records on a radio station in France that I like. So I was aware of her, I was aware of this record, so I just had to try it out. Another 24 euros, which is like $30 almost. So it's like, oof. This is almost for like the novelty almost, you know. Here's a really good soundtrack, an 80s random soundtrack. Unsung, a lot of people don't know about it, but when I came upon this in a record store, because it wasn't on streaming services, I was like, I gotta get this. But it's some really great songs on here. This came out in 1982. So you got Chic, Deborah Harry from, not the B-52s, what's that group? I can't think right now. But Teddy Pendergrass, Carly Simon, Sister Sledge. Oh, there's some great records on here. Yep. Definitely. Soup for One. I've seen that movie. It's pretty good movie. But and then next we have another 80s random over to Scotland. The Blue Nile. A Walk Across the Rooftops. Now this is just a classic album. I mean, this is one of those kind of like groups that have their own like niche fan base, like people either heard of them or they haven't heard of them, but the people that know them really love them. The Blue Nile, they're let's see, how can I describe them? Very tight with their production, but new wavy as most stuff is in the mid 80s, but the lead singer, Paul Buchanan, he's very soulful. He has a very soulful voice in that Scottish kind of way. So, Walk Across the Rooftops, The Blue Nile, love that album. All right, so it's gonna be a bit of a theme here. So, since it's Christmas time, this came out a couple years ago. I don't know if you've seen this movie, Last Christmas. And it features the music of George Michael and Wham. This is sort of a soundtrack, and you have some songs on here and it's actually featuring an unreleased song by George Michael too. So it's a double album vinyl here, and it's just some of George Michael's classic music. You got Last Christmas, you got Praying for Time, Fast Love, some Wham songs on here. One More Try with Emily Clark, Henry Goodling. So, being the fan that I am, I had to pick that one up. And another George Michael, Listen Without Prejudice, is probably one of his most popular albums. This has Freedom on it. This came out in 1990. another one in my birth year. But this was re-released in 2017, right after he died. So this is like his first re-release, and just basically the vinyl version of the regular album. No new remixes or anything, not on vinyl at least. And this one right here is probably his most well-known album, Faith. You know, I think this is the original copy. The Fave George Michael was Faith, Father Figure, I Want Your Sex, Kissing a Fool, One More Try. This album was big in the States. Speaking of which, my latest purchase from the man himself, just re-released, if I could find it, George Michael, Older, which is actually my favorite album by George Michael. They just re-released this on vinyl. Came out in 1996, and this was long overdue. This album was like, before it was re-released, this album was like $2,000 on Discog because it was so rare to find on vinyl. Very, very soulful, very pop. I mean, no one blended like soul and pop and singer-songwriter musicianship like George Michael, in my opinion, especially in the voice on top of that. This is like his greatest, most kind of intimate work. You know, it's very smooth, very soulful. And like I said, I was going to end with one of my favorite albums of all time. I mentioned this band before. This is Talk Talk, Laughing Stock. And this came out in 1991. This is their final album as a band. And this is when they went into what they call a post-rock direction. This album was similar to their last one, Spirit of Eden, was constructed with piecing together improvisational musicians and putting it together to create this like genre, this uncategorized genre of really good meditative, spiritual, just music. I don't know how to describe this album. I can't describe this album. But if you haven't heard it, if you got Spotify, if you have Apple Music, give this a listen. This is one of my favorite albums, and it's great to have on vinyl because there's so many instruments in that album, and when you have it on analog, it really brings it out more. That's all the vinyl I have. You know, I'm not so hot on buying vinyl because it's so expensive. It's kind of a novelty thing. If there's an album that I can't find on streaming services or something that I just really want to listen to in analog, I don't really play vinyl that much. It's more for, like I say, the novelty. But I'm pretty proud of my collection. And I hope to buy more through the years. So if you like any of these records, let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and hopefully more hauls to come. All right, take care.